Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Tired F1 Pod. I've been having some arguments with people online.
Oh no.
I know, right? It's a dangerous, dangerous pastime.
Having arguments online. What could go wrong?
Exactly. And it's great for your mental health. But here we go. I've been told that Lewis Hamilton is over the hill, past his prime.
Oof.
He's too slow. Tell me I'm wrong.
Oh my God. You're doing this again, man. This is crazy. All right. I have seen some of the arguments too, because now, whether I like it or not, I'm attached to your hip with some of these online comments. But there is something to be said about the fact that Lewis now finds himself in a place where he's probably not the best driver in the field. I think that can be said. I think there's enough competition around. The level of competition is very, very, very high. I think higher than it probably ever has been throughout his career. Maybe outside of when he started, when he was the rookie coming in 2007, right? That was a different deal. Now this year is we're
Pretty good
now at the
competition
point
back
of
then.
pretty good competition. But since then, right, he's had this dominant run, and I think that I feel like everything in life, as in racing as well, has cycles, right? Like, and I think he's definitely on the 17th, 18th hole of his career, right? So like that's kind of what we're looking at here. And I think it's fair to say that he's slowed down compared to where he's had been in the past. So in that strictest sense, I would say yes, he's past his prime.
Okay. Uh, we should probably define prime and like not just is he past his prime, but there's an argument to ask, has he even reached his prime?
Oh, come on, man. All right.
There we go.
Really? Is that
Yeah.
is it what we're doing now? Like what point is he going to reach his prime when he is 50?
What do you
Like what
think?
are we doing?
What
Like
what do you
Fernando
think he's
Alonso?
what do you think he's perfect?
Well,
Do
I
you think
see.
there
I
are
think well, the way I would define that is I don't think he's going to see the type of success he's seen in the past. Like that's how I would define it, right? Because that is the most objective measure we have. I'm not suggesting that his performance or his physical skills or anything like that, because I have no way to evaluate those. Number one, I don't think any of us do. And it's all relative, right? It's also so car dependent. A lot of these things, right? Like you can't just say, okay, his reaction time is slightly greater than what it was 5 years ago. Maybe that's one measurement of it, but I don't think that that matters. I think it's in the sheer sense of seeing results and seeing dominance, right? When somebody has been at Mount Everest in terms of results, I don't think you're going to see that again,
yeah, but
just in
Ammar,
part
that
because that
is
has.
that is car related though, isn't it? Like dominance isn't in isolation. It's not just about how good you are as a driver. You have to have everything
Fair
around
enough.
you to
Yeah.
do that,
Yeah.
right? So even that is a flawed metric for telling you how in their prime or how absolutely good somebody is, right? We have a long sample set for Lewis Hamilton, right? He's been in Formula One since 2007, right? That's I can't even do the maths. That's a long time. He's gone from being a championship challenger in 2021 to 2022 being in a car that's in the midfield, finding himself in a completely different situation to what he was in before. And at the same time, up against a teammate who isn't the same as the guy who was up against for the previous 5 seasons, right? Like, I don't think there's any particular argument to say that Valtteri Bottas was not the same level of competition that George Russell has been over the past couple of seasons, right? So I
Yeah,
don't think you're completely comparing apples with
but there's no way
apples.
to do that. There's no way
But
to
there
do
are,
that.
so I think there is because of that sample set, because of the range of drivers that Lewis has been up against in the same car. I think we can start to make some of those comparisons. And my question to you is, you say the question I have been asked is, do I think that Lewis is past his prime? My question is, has he reached his prime? Has he got to the point where he is the best version of himself that he possibly can be? And my answer is no, because I think there's still a very, very specific area of his performance that he can improve on,
Which is what?
that can qualifying. I think this has always been a problem for Lewis, always. And this is going back to his very first season. I remember watching the Australian Grand Prix in 2007, right? And I'm not relying on my memory. I watched it recently, but what James Allen was talking about was the fact in qualifying for that race, he was out qualified by Fernando Alonso, but actually his race pace was much better than Fernando's. That's the thing that had stuck out for these guys in free practice. And if you look at the course of Lewis's career, that's always been the case. Race pace has always been his the feather in his cap. That's always been the thing that sets him apart. And actually, qualifying, he's been when he's actually had an out and out qualifying ace in the same car as him, he's not always fared that well. Mark Hughes did a really nice look at Lewis's pace stats against his teammates. And 2007 and 2008 are always tricky because the qualifying results were always fuel corrected. Right? They qualified with the starting fuel that they were going to use for the race. So if you put a bit more in, you were just naturally going to be a bit slower. So if you fuel corrected, actually Fernando was quicker over the course of that season over a lap than Lewis was. So that's exhibit A. And then if you go forwards in time, if you go to 2014, right? In 2014, do you think that Lewis was past his prime at that point?
No,
No. Do you think he was on absolutely on top of his game?
I'm not sure you could say he was on top of his game, but I think he was as good as he could be.
Yeah. Um, so second season in the car against Mercedes, against Nico Rosberg, got out qualified.
Yeah.
Head to head was
Well,
I
but
think
can but
head to head was 9-8 in the sessions that could be actually compared. And actually on pace, he was about 500ths slower over the course of the season. 500 slower against Nico Rosberg. So him not being able to come up against George and being able to beat George, I think says more about George than it does about Lewis. And that's where I think he can
but you just said
make the
that
improvement.
okay. I'm gonna check you on this. Okay. We
Do it.
have I get that this is an exhibit in the argument that he has not yet reached his prime, but you take that and you juxtapose that to everything else he's accomplished and all of the things that we hold far more valuable than qualifying pace against teammate. Like we know that points are given out on Sunday, not on Saturday. So yeah, it's great to be qualifying on all these polls. I mean, Leclerc has all these polls in the world, right? And what do we say? It's always about Sunday, right? So I'm not sure that I buy into that metric as an important part of the argument by itself. I think it's a fair thing, right? But look, if you're gonna find someone that has been um next to flawless, great for as long as he has been, you're gonna find some weakness in their game, right?
Yeah,
But
but but
that
that but
but
that's
but
but that's what
using
we're
that,
trying.
but you
But Ahmad,
can't use that as.
that's what we're trying to do here. We're
I
trying to
understand that, but how can
find.
you say that means that he has not hit his prime? Like, I mean, okay, he could be great in qualifying
Well,
the next couple of years, but stink in race pace. Then what are we saying then?
I I don't think those two things are going to
Well,
happen.
I'm just saying there could. I mean, there's got to be something he's not going to be great at, right? Like, I mean, he's and this is again relative to teammate,
But
right?
Lewis has talked about the fact that when he drives, when he goes into a season, he's looking for perfection. That's what he's trying to
Okay,
attain
sure,
with his career. So
sure.
if that's what he is trying to attain, his qualifying pace is currently
I don't.
is and I think across the entirety of his season of his career, his qualifying performance puts him a step below perfection. And if we're talking about him getting to his peak, this is
No.
difficult because pace, getting absolute pace out of yourself is the
Um,
hardest thing as a Formula One driver you could do. But if he's looking to be even better than he is right now, to find that last little thing that he needs to complete the set, it's qualifying pace.
okay, fair enough. But I mean, I don't think that changes anything. Like, I wouldn't say. I mean, in my mind, it's not like, okay, that's all of a sudden going to change the argument, or for some reason he's going to hit his prime doing that. Because we know that there's always a little bit of give and take between qualifying pace and race pace, and there's more to it than just being the out and out quicker guy on the team. Like
I
it's
don't, I
not.
don't agree. I don't agree with that.
Well,
I
and
absolutely don't
also,
agree with
by
that.
the way, I'm not putting George on this pedestal by any means, because the last 2.5+ years, Mercedes have had a car that has been, I don't want to use like words that, we cannot use on this channel, but like that's not a good thing. Like that's like me comparing the two Williams drivers. Like, great, you beat out Logan Sargent on a well, at least the Williams, I mean, Alex has done a great job, so I'll have to walk that back. But it's like two Haas cars. Like, okay, what does that even mean? It doesn't mean anything, because
But
Mercedes
it
have
does.
absolutely not been in the mix.
Okay, but you
It's not
can
like
look
they've
at you
been.
you can look at those two drivers, they can't. You can look at Nico Hulkenberg and you can look at Kevin Magnussen, and you can say that Nico Hulkenberg has out qualified and probably out and put
Okay,
himself
fair
in a
enough. But it
position
means it
to
means a lot
outperform Kevin
more for a
Magnussen.
Haas than it means for a team that's competing for championships. And when you're competing for
But
championships,
that's all
and
you've
you're and
got.
you're 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 competing
But
with Red
but
Bull, you're
that
competing with
but
Ferrari,
Amar,
you're competing with McLaren. It's a
Amar,
different deal.
that's all you've got in front of you right now, right? The car is what the car is. So the only thing that you can compare is those two drivers in relevant sessions, qualifying and the race. And in
Okay, but
qualifying,
what
George
does
is
that
out
mean, though?
qualifying a
Okay,
seven-time
great.
world champion.
Fair enough. Okay.
I do need to get this straight. Are you saying that actually George is not that good, and actually
I'm not putting George in that sphere just yet.
why
I'm
not?
going to say this,
Why
just
not?
not yet. No, I just haven't seen enough from him. I just haven't
What
seen.
do you need
You
to
know, by the
see?
way, when he's had the chance to win or really be we've seen what he's done in Singapore 23. We saw what he did in Australia this year. Like, this is not George is not like, yeah, I'm not going to put him there. I'm just not. Like,
But
I'm
you
not even convinced that he's better than Valtteri. Like, I'm not there yet. Well, we have to do that debate
Wow.
some other time, but I'm not. And
We're
look,
gonna
and
have to
look,
do this.
here's what I'm gonna say. I'm just saying not yet, right? I want to be very
Okay.
clear. I'm not yet. Uh, and I
Okay.
would give him the same benefit of doubt, by the way, because Mercedes have not given him the car either. So it's not, for me, it's this is an indictment on the team and the stupid direction they decided to go in. And by the way, stick in it, right? That's what's caused a lot of these issues. And clearly there's a reason why Lewis felt he needed to bolt Mercedes after signing a 2-year
Yeah, but
contract
okay.
like
Okay.
4 months ago. Like, these
Different.
are all things that are
It's a different
related.
argument, man.
I
That's a different
understand
argument
that, but it's part of it.
what we're talking about right now is whether or not George Lewis is has it in him to improve enough to qualify better than George
Sure,
Russell, right?
sure, but
So, but we do need to have a benchmark here. We have to understand what the benchmark is. So you think that George Russell hasn't convinced you any more or less? He's convinced you less than Valtteri Bottas has. Okay, I'm gonna pick you up on that.
how many wins does Bottas have?
What?
How many wins does Bottas have?
I'm not okay. I'm gonna blast past that because it's a completely irrelevant question in a
Okay,
different setting, right? In and if you're going to do that in the past 3 seasons, how many races has Lewis won? In the
zero.
last three
That's
seasons, how
fine.
many has George won?
One, fluky one. And look
Yeah.
where that ended up.
Did he
Where,
win?
like, yeah, of course he did win.
Did he win in
Sure.
the sprint?
Yeah, he did
Yes.
win.
So he
Okay,
won in
great.
the
Wow,
sprint and
wow,
he won in the
wow.
race.
Excellent. That
And
is
he won in the
that
race.
is the benchmark.
So he has won a race. So if we're going to use
Excellent.
that dumb argument, and it is a dumb argument,
No, it
George has
isn't.
done
It's
it.
race wins over the career. We're not talking about 1 or 2 seasons where, look, man,
Those are the
if you're
only
gonna
seasons that
win,
you
if
can
you're gonna,
compare it to each
I
other.
mean, look,
How are you going
Kevin
to compare
Magnussen was
George
on
and a
pole in
Williams?
Sao Paulo. What does
Amar,
that mean? That doesn't mean
Amar,
anything.
how are you going to compare George and a Williams? You think that George should have been winning races in that
I did.
Williams?
That's why I said not yet. That's why I said
So
I'm not
that's why I'm
discounting
giving
anything.
you a comparison for the thing that you can compare him with, and that's qualifying. It's the only time when both drivers are absolutely at their optimum in a car that is set up as best as it can be for that particular track, and they go at it, right? And
Okay.
George has outqualified Lewis 7-1 this season.
You
And
know
he
why though? You're
why?
favoring him. Come on. Like, I
They're
mean,
favoring
because
him.
Lewis is leading. Come on.
How they're favoring him?
I don't know how they're favoring him, but
So how do you explain last season then when the head to head was 11 all? He wasn't
I'm
leading
telling you,
then.
last season he gets credit for it. I'm not taking anything away from him,
Okay,
but I'm not going to use
because
one season
because
in a
I need
season where
to
Mercedes were
I
largely
genuinely do
irrelevant.
need to understand what your beef with George is because we can't
I don't have
make
a beef with
progress.
George. I just
But
said not
you
yet.
just said he's not as good as Valtteri. That is
Yet.
beef. Valtteri is probably
Yet.
the in the last 10 years, Valtteri is the weakest teammate that Lewis has had, and you're telling me that you think George is not as good as Valtteri.
I am
So
saying
I have to.
Nope, I'm saying
I don't think you
TBD.
need any more evidence. I don't
So
know what evidence you
you
need.
have enough evidence just based on these
Yeah,
last 2 years. Okay.
I absolutely do.
Okay.
Because your reason, because tell me your reason for him not being there yet.
Well, I already told you. I gave you 2 examples.
Race pace.
Singapore
Well, you
23.
said single, yeah,
Not race
and
pace, race. The
race. Okay,
goddamn
so
race
okay,
when
so
you don't put it in the wall when
okay,
you're
so
supposed to.
Singapore
Like what
2023.
does that mean? Like we
Give
can't
me
just
another one.
blast past that.
Give me another one.
Well, look what he did in Australia too. Kind of the same thing.
What did you
I
do
mean,
in
come on.
Australia? We're going to
Oh,
keep
we
going
did
back
a
to the
whole
thing.
video on that. Check us out. Check us out
Yeah,
and
the
see
what
what Shez
you
says
can
there.
do, you can do, but Fernando did get a penalty for that.
Okay, fair enough. We
Okay.
did. We did play.
Do you think that Charles Leclerc is better than George Russell?
Yes.
Why?
Everything. He's a complete package. Multiple race
Really?
winner,
So,
qualifies on
so
pole,
okay.
beats his he's the better of the Ferrari pairing right now. I
Okay.
mean,
Let's do that.
marginally, but
Or
let's just do that.
let's start with the more difficult part of that argument. How many world championships has Carlos Sainz won?
0,
Zero. How many has Lewis Hamilton won?
7.
Right. So you're comparing his performance is better than Carlos Sainz versus George's performance is better than a seven-time world champion.
I'm not. I'm what? But
Because
listen,
you've
that's
just
what
used
you're.
that as a you've
But
just
you
used that
said
as a
that you're only going to be
Ammar.
compared to who you have in your team. Like,
Yeah, yeah,
that's
yeah,
not.
yeah, 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 yeah,
It's
yeah,
not
yeah.
Charles's
But
fault. Like, call
yeah,
Schumacher
sure.
back or
But
what?
Ammar,
What are we going to
if
do?
you're gonna say if you're gonna use that as an argument, well, George has also beaten his own teammate, and his teammate is a seven-time world
Okay,
champion. Number
everything
one.
you say is
Second,
fair, but I said yet. My keyword is I have yet to see that. I have yet to see George be whatever he's promised to be. Like they introduced him in Miami the year before, saying he's the future world champion. Of what? We haven't seen anything yet. And they're guy. I mean, look at we just.
yeah,
I
yeah.
mean, what do you think about
This
Piastri?
is
Like, what do you
this
think about
is
Lando? Like, they're all.
yeah, yeah.
It's not like it's not a given there.
But this is circumstance bias, though, isn't it? If George was performing the way he has been performing in a Mercedes that was at the level of Red Bull, what do you think his reputation would be like now?
But you just said that the car and
What
driver
did I
they
say?
matter. They go hand in hand. Like it's not.
Oh
You
my
can't
God,
separate
Amara,
the
you
two
can't
now.
but you're happy to put them together for when it suits your argument and then separate them
But
when
you
it
are happy
doesn't.
to separate them when it suits your argument. All I'm trying to say is you cannot judge Lewis Hamilton on George Russell's performance when you have how many years of Lewis Hamilton before that? And let's go back to the point
And in
that we were
all
trying
of
to make
those
initially, which we're
seasons,
talking about, has he hit his prime or not? You're contending that he has not hit his prime because he's going to hit another level in qualifying. And I'm saying, and this is kind of where we got lost, a bit off track, right? But to me, that's not hitting prime anymore because qualifying is part of the whole race weekend. That's like saying, okay, great,
correct.
you beat your teammate in P1. Great. Okay, good deal. What does that mean? Nothing. Because qualifying only matters in the sense that track position, strategy,
Correct.
all of those things. So you can be below your teammate in many ways, and that's fine. That's okay. Because we've always known Lewis to be
But
a
that
great
doesn't matter.
racer.
You
He
can't
races
have
with
great,
Sundays in mind. Like,
sure, but you
well,
can't have great. Okay, we're not living in the 80s now, right? Where you set your car
we're
up
not.
for qualifying or you set your car up for the race. It doesn't work like that. Your
Exactly.
car is the same. Your car is the same for both. So,
Correct.
yes,
So you have
correct.
to keep Sunday in mind.
Which means
It's
that you
not
have
about
to be good at
Saturday.
you have to be good at both, man. This
Of
is what
course,
Charles does,
but you're
right? You're
saying
talking
that
about
he's not
Charles.
good. It's not. It's
I'm not
like
saying he's
he's
not
not
good.
qualifying 18th.
I'm not saying he's not good. I'm saying that there is a step that is
Okay,
still required.
sure.
And that's the difference.
And
And
that
George
step
is a
means he's hit
good,
his prime.
if he hits that, if he
So
hits
then
that,
you'll
if
say he's hit his prime, not the 7 championships, not the ones that he's lost, none of that in those seasons. But we're just gonna say that he hit his prime then.
yeah, I don't understand why those two things
My
have to be
my
mutually
beef with you
exclusive.
is
So
you don't consider Lewis to have been either at or past his prime just based on not qualifying better than his teammates.
correct, because what I'm saying here,
I used to beat so many of them.
my argument here is that he wasn't faced with the challenge that he's got right now with George
Ugh.
Russell in the other car, right? And it's a qualifying issue. It's not a race pace issue. I totally agree with you. In the races, Lewis is faster. That's demonstrable, right? And quantifiable. But in qualifying, he is behind. You cannot argue with that. You can't argue with a 7-1 deficit in 2024, right? So, but he's not been up against a driver like that. And when he has, he's even in the past, in the years where you think he was in his prime, he was still not able to beat an out and out
Okay.
ace. He did beat Rosberg over the seasons 2015 to 2016 because he upped his game, he upped his level. And that is what I think Lewis needs
Yeah,
to
but
do
I also think a lot
again.
of it depends on, okay, and so so
And
if that's
and
your
this isn't
argument,
just
I don't think he's hitting
this isn't
prime
just
again.
this isn't
Then
just
he's
me
not
saying
hitting
it.
prime. So let's bring it back then. Fair enough. Okay, I give you that. All right, if that's what you're saying, fair enough. I agree. But then that also means he's not gonna hit his prime anymore. Like that,
Why?
because next year he's gonna be up against Leclerc. I don't know how many races you have. Maybe this season he can still make it up to George, but again, it's gonna be okay.
Okay.
It's a watered down metric as
Now we're
far as
getting
that
there.
goes.
So, okay, so now we're getting to the crux of the argument. The crux of the argument here is: do you think that
It's
Lewis
20
has
minutes
enough
to
in
get.
him?
Go ahead.
Yeah, it did because you're. I mean, what is
I'm an
this?
idiot.
Ah, I didn't even finish my tirade about how you can't say that George is nothing if you can think that Charles is everything. Anyway,
Charles is everything. Come on, that's not
sure.
a comparison.
Yeah. Tell me that when he's crashing out in Le Castellet
Let
or
me
crashing
tell
out
me tell
in
me George is
Miami.
everything when he's got as many W's as Charles. Let's do that then.
Yeah, give him a car to do it, and perhaps
Oh,
he
okay.
will.
Of course, give Charles a Red Bull, then he'll do it too. Okay, well, what does that
I'm sure
mean?
he will,
It's
but I'm
like
sure all of them will.
if
You
you can
cannot
give,
win a
yeah,
race,
I'm sure
and you
Logan
cannot win
Sargent would
races in
want
a
Red
car
Bull
that won't
too
allow you
to
to
say
do
he
it.
would
This
do
is
it. Yeah,
just
okay.
Formula One.
Yes,
This is
but you
Formula
can't.
One
Yeah, but
101, my
then you
friend.
can't. Now again, you can't decouple the car now. Now just give him a car. But now when he's beating Lewis, oh, that's the car. Like, you can't do both ways.
I didn't say that. I never said it's the
You said
car.
that.
I said when they have the
Yeah,
same
but
car.
you can't use the give me the car
No,
as a
no, Amma,
crutch. You can't
you're
use that.
absolutely. You can when they're not in the same car. When they are in the same car, you can use the car. You can say that it's not the car because they both have the same car. But when drivers are not in the same car, then you have to take that into account. How is
We
that a
did take it into
contradiction?
account, but you are the one who brought up Charles. I didn't. I didn't bring up Charles, but that's like a convenient thing to bring up. Like, is he better than Checo? Okay, yeah, sure, he is. Okay, fair enough. What does that mean? Doesn't mean anything.
But you said that you don't think that George is better than Charles, and I'm arguing that there isn't anything to say that George is not better than Charles.
Of course there is.
What?
Results.
Like what?
Results where I mean, I don't know what you're
Okay, so
doing.
okay, so Amar, you're telling me, right, that in a car that the car that Charles had in 2022, when
Okay.
he had the F175, was it
Mhm.
775?
You don't have to hit me with the car number too. Like you
I
can
think it
just make
was.
your argument. Once you establish the year, we don't need to go down that path.
Right. So you're telling me that when Charles has the F175
Yeah.
and George has the W13, right? You're saying that it's fair to say that Charles is better because he has more wins than George.
Yes.
Tell me that with a straight face. Why?
Yes. Because okay,
So George should have won.
is
George should
George
have won
better than
multiple races.
is George better than Alex?
Alex who?
Alex Albon?
Yes.
Why?
In
Alex doesn't
F2,
have. Uh-huh.
when they
Oh,
were in
okay. Yeah,
equal cars, he won the championship rookie. Yep.
okay.
Next,
Oh,
go,
so
next
now
one.
now we're going back to F2 results. So now we're changing the. So you're just gonna
Why?
pick the element that works into your argument and then compare that. Let's
Well,
talk about
it's a
Formula One.
valid
No.
argument.
Let's not talk about F2. We're not talking about F2 here. We're talking about Formula One. We've been
Why?
talking about
That's the only time they
no,
were
no,
in
no, no,
equal
no. Wait,
cars.
then come on. Like what are we doing there? Let's go back to the karting days and see who won better. No, that's not what we're
Sure, I'll
doing.
do that if you
We're,
want
we're
to.
doing the point I'm trying to make to you is what you're saying about George and Charles being in different car. I can say that with any other driver that is behind him on the grid, but that doesn't make Alex a worse driver or better driver than George. I'm saying that the results matter
Okay,
because at some
but
point you can't just say you can't
you
play
do
the
have.
hypothetical with give
Okay,
me a
but Omar,
car.
of course they're all hypotheticals. Again, that's why we have a YouTube channel. But
No, we don't have you.
but if you're going to do that argument, right? And I don't know why this has suddenly turned into is George better than Charles? I don't think he is better than Charles. That's not what I'm saying. What I am saying is that you can't downplay George's achievements because of a couple of crashes in races. Like that's not a reason to indict someone when you've got another driver in another car who has done exactly the same thing. Anyway, we should get back on track. You're right. Um, Where were we?
We should. I think this is so Lewis is not going to hit his prime, I think. Or in your opinion, it looks like, or in your opinion,
Okay,
Lewis
but
has not hit his prime, and I'm going to say that he isn't going to hit his prime anymore because he's going
because you
to a
think
team
he
where the
cannot.
guy
Okay,
he's up against Charles, who we know. I hope we can agree on this that he is one of the best qualifiers, if not the best qualifier in Formula One today.
yeah,
All right, I think we can agree on that at least.
yeah. But I guess then the argument that I've got there then is, are you saying that Lewis doesn't have the capacity to improve?
I'm no judge of anyone's capacity. Like, come on, like we're gas bagging here. Like, let's just be honest. Like, the seven-time world champion probably could have won an eighth, right? Whatever. I can't sit up here and say he doesn't have the capacity or the will or the desire. Who are we to say that, right? I just don't think that if you believe, now we're taking your argument, right? If you believe that conquering qualifying pace is an indicator of him maybe stepping in to another level, which I'm sure he wants to. And oh, by the way, he has to want perfection. All of these guys do. I don't believe that any of them want anything less than that. Even going all the way back to Logan Sargent
Yeah.
on 20th place, right? I do believe that. Like that's why they're in the sport where only 20 of them get to be there. So I don't doubt his intention. I don't think that with the metric that you put forward that he's ever going to hit his prime, or and in some ways, in my opinion, he's past his prime. And now he's in a situation with a lot of talented drivers that are far more hungrier with machinery that's more or less comparable. Like we can probably agree on that whatever these next couple of years that he's going to be with Ferrari, at least the first 2 years, looks like they're going to be in the mix with Red Bull and McLaren and possibly Mercedes. And it's probably going to be, one of those seasons that we haven't had in a while where you're going to have 3, 4 teams. And it's going to be really hard for him to conquer, seven, 8 contenders at any given day. I think that's sort of my summation of in terms of whether he gets back on the top or not. And I have real questions as to whether he's going to actually win that eighth now.
Because of the competition that he's up against.
I,
I guess that's the challenge that he's going to be setting himself, right? Like
yep.
if he wants to win an eighth championship, that's the challenge, isn't it? That the qualifying pace cannot be a step behind anymore. It can't be, and that means that he's going to have to improve. So if he wants that eighth championship, there has to be another level, and if he reaches that another level, that's his prime. I don't think he's past his prime. I don't think he's lost anything because he's doing right now what he has been throughout his entire career. He's up against an absolute gun in the other car over
Yeah.
one lap. And George has even got a freaking moniker. He's called Mr. Saturday for a reason. So that's the level that Lewis is trying
This
to reach.
Yeah, become Mister. I mean, look, I don't think he's going to do that at Ferrari. I don't think it's going to happen because we've had this conversation back when Lewis first announced his move to Ferrari that he's going to be up against a very, very talented and a very hungry Leclerc. We don't know what 24 is going to look like as of this recording, right? We know that Charles is second in the championship, although probably a good 30 points away, and it's not a given that Max is not going to win, but that's going to be a steep mountain to climb. So in that strictest sense, in that very narrow definition of being at past or beyond his prime, whatever that is, I would say that it's not going to happen.
Yeah, because you're basing it on results.
That's all we
Yeah.
have to go by, remember?
No, because I told you because it's dependent on too many things.
Okay,
Whereas
well, you can't give
Yeah,
credit and
whereas
then
when you've
not
got
give
when you've
blame.
got when you've got Lewis and Charles in the same car next season, and Charles is out qualifying Lewis, then that's telling you right there and then that Charles is quicker than Lewis.
Yeah, but I
Until
also
then, you don't have a comparison.
But I would say you'd have to pair that with race results, right? Because if Lewis does end up having better racecraft, and that's Sundays are when points are given, the narrative changes, right? Like you can't just say qualifying by itself defines it, right? You have to kind of put the whole thing, which has been my damn argument with you from the get-go. It's like it's not just about qualifying. Yes, valid.
I'm not saying
Qualifying is a chink in his armor, but he's got so many other things going for him. Um, these last 2 years removed, really. Yeah.
yeah, but qualifying is causing him issues in races now. That's the problem, right? He's coming. He's he's only just beating George in certain races, but he's having to do it the hard way because he doesn't have the qualifying
No, of course, fair enough. And
pace.
I'm gonna recklessly speculate, but he can't wait. I mean, he can't wait to see what it looks like to be in that Ferrari next year because that sure as hell looks like the better choice, at least at this
Sure,
point. Even
but
Mercedes does make it back, as you said. They've had some brain drain, and that's not gonna easily be compensated. Like that takes
yeah,
a
yeah.
while.
But what I don't want to see is next season we're in the same place again, where we're having to talk about Lewis being on the wrong end of a 7 or 8-1 qualifying deficit, and you know we're sat here saying you know
Would you
we're still
say?
having this conversation where you're telling me that actually Lewis,
Will you say that if he's winning those races or he's beating Charles in the race?
I'd still say that that's room for improvement.
Okay.
Yes, of
I
course it
mean,
is.
sure, there's room
How
for
how how
improvement.
can
Everyone can
how
say
can there
that.
not be room for improvement if your teammate is out qualifying you?
If you're winning and beating him in the race, then it clearly means you're doing
Yeah, that's
something better.
great. That's great. That means that you've got a better overall package
All right.
than your teammate, but it doesn't mean that there
I'm
isn't
gonna
room for
mark it
improvement.
here. Today is May. We're not gonna, yeah, end of May 24. That you said that qualifying matters more than race pace. And you're gonna
It's not
criticize
gonna.
him even if
Okay,
he's winning
you
those
can
goddamn
you
races but
can you
qualifying
can
behind
mark that
Charles.
if you can mark that if you want to, but I will tell you that I did not say that. What I said was that if
Room
there
for
is an area,
improvement.
yeah, qualifying would be an area that has room for improvement.
Okay.
Whether his race pace is better than Charles or not, if he's being out qualified by Charles, that means there is a gap that needs to be bridged.
I know how to solve this problem. Give points for Saturday and Sunday. There you go. Then you're gonna
You
know.
don't even need that. You have all the data in front of you. They give you times, they give you split times. You can look at
Why would
everything.
we be
We're
debating
doing
qualifying times when the race matters more? Like, what are we doing here?
okay. Okay, Omar, I feel like we've got to the end of this argument, and
Yes, that is the
you're not
bombshell you
really listening
needed.
to me. Anyway, turns out we can't
tell,
always agree,
tell us
and
how we did, guys.
that's why you listen to us, obviously. If you like that, like, subscribe. If you're a massive George fan, help me out. If you're a massive not George fan, help Amar out. And otherwise, leave us a comment. We read them all. We reply to quite a few of them, and we'll see you in the next one.
Later.